What would you do if your own father treated your child like she didn't exist? My name is Laurel Vance, 30 years old, dental hygienist, mother of one bright little girl named Emma. I've always been the quiet type, the one who fixes what's broken, apologizes first, and keeps the peace even when it hurts. But that night, sitting at my small kitchen table in Portland, I felt something in me shift. The text glowed on my phone screen like a Dare family comes first. We need $3,500 for your brother's graduation. I read it once, twice, a third time. The words didn't sting, they burned. My father didn't ask. He ordered. The same man who hadn't bothered to call 3 days ago when Emma turned 6 now wanted money for Todd's party. I set the phone down beside my coffee mug and stared at the fridge. A half-eaten pink cake sat behind the glass. I hadn't had the heart to throw it away. The frosting had started to crack, the colors fading the way joy does when it's been left too long in the cold. Emma was asleep in the next room, her small breaths soft and steady. She'd fallen asleep clutching the balloon that never got released, waiting all afternoon for grandparents who never came. Outside, the rain started again steady, familiar Portland rain that usually calmed me, but tonight it only sounded like memory. My father's words blurred with the hum of the fridge and the ache in my chest. I opened my banking app and stared at the balance I'd been building for Emma's future. Then I thought of the empty chairs at her party and the silence that followed. That was the moment something inside me stopped bending. 3 days earlier, the backyard had smelled of buttercream and rain-soaked grass. I'd strung paper lanterns across the fence, patched the old picnic table with a blue cloth, and rented a small bounce house that barely fit between the garden beds. Emma wanted a superhero theme, so I spent half the night before cutting red capes out of felt and frosting a cake shaped like a lightning bolt. By noon, the sky cleared, and laughter began to fill the yard. Kids from her kindergarten class tumbled through the bounce house, their socks scattering across the lawn. I kept glancing at the street, expecting headlights to appear. My parents lived 15 minutes away. Todd and Bree, even closer. Each time a car passed, Emma dropped what she was doing and ran to the gate, her cape fluttering behind her. "Is that them?" "Mama," she'd ask. I smiled, hoping my voice didn't tremble. "Not yet, sweetheart." 2 o'clock came. Then 3. The cake started to sag at the edges. I called my mother, no answer. My father, voicemail. Bree sent a text around 4. "Sorry, something came up." Nothing from Todd. The children sang, and Emma blew out her candles. I clapped, smiled for photos, handed out favor bags. Inside, something fragile inside me cracked like the icing on the cake after the last family waved goodbye. The yard felt too quiet. I gathered wrapping paper and half-deflated balloons while Emma sat on the porch swing, her eyes fixed on the street. "Did I do something wrong?" she whispered. I knelt beside her, brushing the sticky strands of hair from her cheek. "You did everything right," I said, forcing the words past the tightness in my throat. That night, after she finally drifted to sleep, I opened my phone. The family group chat still glowed on the screen. Birthdays, jokes, reminders that used to feel warm. One by one, I pressed delete. The next morning, I woke before Emma, the rain still whispering against the windows. I made coffee and opened my laptop, meaning to check work emails, but instead found myself staring at my banking app again. The numbers didn't lie, they never had. For years, every so-called family emergency had run through me. When Todd crashed his car at 22, my parents covered $12,000 without blinking. When Bree failed out of college twice, they paid for her third attempt, calling it a fresh start. When I became a single mom, I got a lecture about choices. Back then, I had nodded, promised I'd manage. I always did. Rent, daycare, groceries, the occasional trip to urgent care when Emma caught another winter flu. I'd built survival out of schedules and coupons. But as I scrolled through my old transfers, I saw the pattern as clearly as the reflection of my own tired eyes on the screen. $200 here for Dad's medication, $400 for family dinner costs, $800 for Todd's job search, all sent from me, never returned, not once. It wasn't generosity, it was guilt disguised as duty, and I'd been paying interest on that debt for most of my adult life. I opened a blank spreadsheet and began typing dates, amounts, reasons. Each line steadied me. Each total felt like truth taking shape. The sum at the bottom made my stomach twist, but it also brought clarity. They had taken thousands, piece by piece, under the banner of family. The last entry was from 6 months ago, $300 for Mom's dental work. She'd told me it was urgent. I'd skipped my own cleaning that month to afford it. Now, reading my father's demand for $3,500, the math wasn't emotional anymore. It was evidence. Love, I realized, had turned into an invoice that only ever went one direction. By noon, the rain had cleared and sunlight pooled across the kitchen counter, the kind that made everything look more honest. I sat there with my phone, the text from my father still open, the same words echoing in my head. Family comes first. I opened my banking app, thumb hovering over the keypad. My savings account glowed like a small promise every extra shift, every packed lunch. Every night I'd skipped takeout so Emma could have swim lessons instead. I typed $1. In the memo line, I wrote best wishes. For a moment, I hesitated, the old reflex tugging at me. What if this made things worse? What if it started something I couldn't stop? Then I thought of Emma on that porch swing, whispering if she'd done something wrong. I pressed send. The confirmation screen flashed. Transfer complete. My hands were trembling, but my mouth curved into something I hadn't felt in months, a real smile, a small, shaky piece of freedom. That evening, after Emma was asleep, I called Destiny. She was folding laundry, speakerphone crackling with the sound of hangers. Destiny had been my anchor since community college, sharp-eyed, unfiltered, the kind of friend who never flinched at truth. You really sent $1, she asked, laughing. $1, I said. Memo line included. That's the cheapest freedom I've ever seen. Maybe, I said, glancing at the quiet street outside. But I think it's the first thing I've ever bought just for me. She went silent for a second, then said softly, You know this is going to shake the ground a little, right? I looked around my small living room, the dishes drying, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft sound of rain beginning again. Then let it shake. I said, I'm done standing still. The next morning, I found the old mortgage folder tucked inside a drawer I rarely opened. The edges of the papers had softened with time, corners curled from too many hands. My father's signature sat beside mine on the first page, bold, heavy, like a mark of ownership instead of help. I remembered the day he'd signed it. He'd smiled in that practiced way and said, This will give you better rates. Laurel, you should thank me. I had thanked him over and over, not realizing what it really cost. Every argument afterward carried a reminder of that ink. Our house. That's what he always called it. 6 months ago. I'd decided to make it mine in truth. I met Greg Kern, a real estate attorney my coworker recommended, a quiet man who spoke in calm sentences that made paperwork feel like armor. We sat in his small office downtown, fluorescent light glinting off the rain-specked windows. He'd explained the refinancing process, the documents, the credit checks. It's tedious, he warned, but once it's done, no one can use this house as leverage against you. It had taken months of saving and a stack of signatures, but the day the county deed arrived in my mailbox, I stood in the doorway holding it like proof of oxygen. My name, no one else's. Destiny was the first person I told. She came over that night with a bottle of cheap champagne and 2 mismatched mugs. So, she said, grinning, what's next tomorrow? I said, I'm changing the locks. She raised her glass. To clean slates and new keys. Later, after Emma was asleep, I stood by the window, watching the Portland rain trail down the glass. The gutters hummed softly, a steady, private rhythm. For the first time in years, I wasn't just borrowing safety, it was my roof, my walls, my name. Saturday arrived gray and cold, the kind of morning that made Portland feel like it was built from fog. I'd just finished washing breakfast dishes when I heard the sound of gravel crunching outside, tires in my driveway. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw him, my father, standing on the porch in his heavy jacket, the one that always smelled faintly of aftershave and arrogance. My mother sat in the passenger seat of their car, her hands folded in her lap, not moving. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the old house key, and pushed it into the lock. I watched him twist once, twice. Nothing. The new deadbolt held firm. He frowned, tried again, harder this time. Still nothing. His confusion lasted only a moment before his face darkened. He pounded on the door. "Laurel, open up." I took a steady breath, released the chain lock halfway, and opened the door just enough for him to see my face. "It's my house now, Dad," I said quietly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "My key doesn't work. I changed the locks." His voice rose. "You changed the locks to our house without telling me." "It's not our house," I said. "You co-signed the mortgage 3 years ago. I refinanced 6 months back. Your name isn't on anything anymore." The silence that followed was almost physical. My mother finally opened her door and stepped out, hesitant, as if the air between us might shatter. "You went behind my back," he asked. "I handled my own business." His face turned red, jaw tight. "You're ungrateful. After everything I've done, after everything you've taken," I said. My mother reached for his arm, whispering something I couldn't hear. He shook her off, eyes fixed on me. "You've lost your mind." "Laurel, you think locking me out changes who holds power here?" I looked at him through the gap in the door. "It already has." Then I closed it. The latch clicked, final and clean. Outside, I could hear his muffled voice raging, the scrape of his shoes on the porch. But inside, the house was still. The quiet pressed around me, heavy and absolute. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like standing alone in a storm that had finally stopped. It didn't take long. Maybe 20 minutes after I closed the door, I heard his voice again, low, furious, controlled in that way that always made people listen. Then another sound followed sirens. Not loud, not rushing, just close enough to make my stomach twist. Through the living room window, I saw the blue and red lights reflecting against the wet pavement. 2 police officers stepped out of the cruiser, hats pulled low against the drizzle. My father met them halfway down the driveway, gesturing toward the house, his hands slicing through the air like punctuation marks. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew the script. Concerned grandparents, locked out, worried about the child. A knock came, firm but polite. "Ma'am, Portland Police." A woman's voice called. I opened the door halfway. "I'm Laurel Vance." The female officer introduced herself as Officer Nguyen, her expression calm but alert. The male officer stood a few steps back. "Watching my father." "Your father called," she said. "He claims he's been locked out of his own home and is concerned for a minor inside." I handed her the manila folder I'd kept near the entry table, certified copies of the deed and refinance paperwork. My name gleamed in bold letters under the county seal. "It's my home. I refinanced 6 months ago. He has no ownership and no right of entry." She studied the documents, then glanced toward him. "Sir," she said evenly, "these are legal. You're trespassing. I'm going to have to ask you to step back." The look on his face stunned disbelief, as if reality itself had betrayed him, was something I'd waited years to see. Behind the curtains, a neighbor peeked out, their silhouette framed in curiosity. My mother tugged at his sleeve, whispering, But he didn't move until the officers started back toward their car. "This isn't over," he said, his voice sharp enough to carry. When the patrol lights faded, I leaned against the door, my heart hammering. The rain began again, soft and steady. That night, Emma and I sat on the living room floor, coloring. She drew a house under a bright sun. I filled the sky with calm blue strokes, pretending my hands weren't still shaking. 4 days after the police left, I thought the quiet might finally mean peace. Then my phone rang. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but the tone on the other end was unmistakably official. "Ms. Vance, this is Maya Ortiz with Child Protective Services. We received a report about possible neglect of your daughter." For a second, the room tilted. My first thought wasn't fear, it was recognition. I didn't need to ask who had made the call, what kind of report I managed. "I can't discuss details over the phone," she said gently. "We just need to schedule a home visit, tomorrow at 2, if that works." When I hung up, the silence in the kitchen was suffocating. My coffee had gone cold, untouched. "I called Destiny. He called CPS on you," she said, voice sharp with disbelief. "He's really doing this." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I guess locking him out wasn't enough. Destiny came over that night, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back. We cleaned like soldiers preparing for battle, laundry folded, toys sorted, cupboards straightened. She helped me label Emma's vitamins, align the medicine bottles, and pull out preschool attendance reports from the folder by the fridge. When Maya arrived the next afternoon, she looked nothing like the threat I'd imagined. Mid-30s, calm brown eyes, clipboard in hand. She asked to see the kitchen, Emma's room, the bathroom. She checked smoke detectors, looked in the fridge, took quiet notes. Emma peeked out from behind my leg, shy but curious. "This is my room," she said, tugging Maya's sleeve. "See my dinosaur sheets." Maya smiled. "That's very cool. Do you like dinosaurs?" An hour later, she sat across from me at the kitchen table, her notes neatly stacked. "Ms. Vance," she said, "your home is safe. Your daughter's thriving. This report will be closed as unfounded." Relief hit me so hard, it felt like weakness. I managed a thank you as she left, her shoes squeaking against the wet porch. Destiny poured us each a glass of water and exhaled. "He tried to use the system against you," she said quietly. "Maybe it's time you used one back." The courthouse smelled like rain and disinfectant, a mix that made everything feel too clean, too bright. I sat beside Vanessa Rios, my attorney, her calm presence a steady anchor in the noise of shuffling papers and echoing footsteps. She was the one Destiny had recommended, a family law specialist known for her precision and quiet fire. We had built the case piece by piece, the police report from the day he tried to enter, the officer's statement, the malicious CPS complaint, and the text messages that came after. "You'll regret embarrassing this family." You think a piece of paper makes you safe? Vanessa had organized everything into a single binder. Tabs color-coded, evidence like armor. "Stay steady," she told me as the bailiff called our case. "You're not proving pain. You're proving pattern." When my father took the stand, he wore his best jacket, voice smooth as ever. He spoke of concern, of misunderstandings, of how families sometimes get confused by emotion. My mother sat 2 rows behind him, eyes down, hands twisting in her lap. Vanessa stood, unflinching. "Mr. Vance," she said, "did you or did you not contact Child Protective Services claiming your daughter's home was unsafe?" He hesitated, stammered something about responsibility. Vanessa slid the report forward. The judge raised an eyebrow. Later, it was my turn. I walked to the stand, palms cold, voice steady. "Respect isn't obedience," I said. "It's mutual, and my daughter deserves that model." The courtroom was silent, except for the scratch of the clerk's pen. The judge adjusted her glasses, glanced from me to my father. "The evidence is clear," she said. 4-year restraining order granted. Immediate effect. When it was over, I stepped into the damp Portland air, the city humming like nothing had changed, and yet everything had. Destiny was waiting near the curb, hands in her pockets. "You finally taught them no," she said, pulling me into a hug. I let out a shaky laugh. For the first time in my life, no felt like peace. A year later, summer came early to Portland. The air in Laurelhurst Park smelled of lilacs and cut grass, the kind of scent that makes everything feel lighter. I laid out a checkered blanket under the shade of a maple tree while Emma and her friends ran circles around the picnic tables, their laughter echoing like wind chimes. She'd turned 7 that morning. Destiny arrived with a box of cupcakes balanced in one hand and a grin that could outshine the sun. "Chocolate with extra frosting," she said, "because healing deserves sugar." We set them out beside the sandwiches and paper crowns Emma had made herself. There were no awkward silences this year, no glances at the road, no waiting for cars that never came, just music from someone's speaker down the hill, children chasing bubbles, and the easy rhythm of a day without expectation. Halfway through the party, I noticed a small envelope tucked into the picnic basket. The handwriting stopped me my mother's, careful and round. Inside was a simple card. "Happy birthday, granddaughter." No apology, no guilt. Just that. I held it for a moment, then folded it neatly and slipped it back into the envelope. Some words don't need to be answered. Across the park, Emma was pedaling her new bike, training wheels clicking against the path. Destiny cheered as she let go of the handlebars for a second, arms wide, fearless. I felt the sunlight warm my shoulders, the laughter carry through the trees, and something soft settle in my chest. "Family isn't who demands," I whispered, watching my daughter's bright helmet flash in the distance. "It's who shows up, and for once, that was enough."